Good afternoon, podcast listeners. This is your boy Marcus Norman from Gentleman Style Podcast, your host of the number one show coming to you live in America. Here we go. Hey everybody, this is your boy Marcus Norman from Gentleman Style Podcast, your host of the number one show coming to you live in America. And today we have a treat for you. My very special guest was able to cut some time out of his busy schedule while he is growing his company, his brand, his distillery business, all the way coming to you live from Florida. So today we are in for a treat. Mr. Lee Nelson started one of the earliest craft distilleries in Florida via a small crowdfunding loan, person to person. He developed 5 distinct brands and opened Florida's first craft distillery tasting room. With 20 years of experience, this business strategist has come to set the stage for us and show us why we have to think differently about investing. And his company is allowing investors to come in and just reconsider the dynamics. It's no longer about stocks and bonds. It's no longer about mutual funds, but actual people doing good quality business. So without further ado, I'm not going to hold this man back any further. This incredible man, Mr. Lee Nelson. Yes.
Hey, Marcus, how are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us to the show, and thank you for making time for us today. This is going to be epic. I'm excited, and I'm just going to dive right in. What inspired you to start a distillery company in Florida?
Yeah, there were a lot of pieces. I wanted to start a business. I had gone and gotten my MBA, and I had spent many years in tech and doing tech work for large companies, and I really wanted to get away from that and build something that people could hold in their hands, right, and be proud of. My wife and I had taken a trip to Denmark, and we wanted we were visiting old friends, and we wanted to bring gifts that represented Florida. And when we looked around, we had oranges, we had cigars. We didn't really have things that were made in Florida. I mean, other than little pieces of artwork, which is what we ended up bringing. And that planted the seed. And my wife and I talked about it really for 2 years. There has to be something that can really represent Florida. And the part of Florida that I live in, it's surrounded by agriculture. So, when I drive from my house to get on the highway, I'm passing just fields of strawberries, and those transform into cucumbers, and then they grow eggplant out of it. And then, you pass the orange groves and you pass the lime trees. And so that was something I really wanted to get back to. I also had this hobby of brewing beer, was brewing beer for many, many years. And it was a natural progression to say, hey, I wonder if we can take that expertise and take it to the next level. It's a bit more complicated to start distilling stuff. And so I was moonshining in my garage, and was bringing this product to teammates. I play ice hockey, and I was bringing this product to folks. And over time, it started to taste good. And so we talked about it for another couple of years. And then finally, my son was about to arrive. My wife saw this show called Moonshiners on TV, and she came out a little bit furious one day when I was distilling with friends in the garage and said, all this is illegal? Yeah, that's why we have the door shut, And she said, when that baby comes, this isn't happening. So that kind of upped the timeline. And we had been talking about it so much, we finally put pen to paper. We did the analysis, realized, wow, this takes a lot of capital to start. So that's when we first started out and did this peer-to-peer loan. And we asked just strangers on the internet, like, here's our business idea. This is our skill set, what we think we can do. And that started it all. And that was really the beginning of it. And, that was about 11 years ago when we started talking about the business is coming up on its 9th anniversary. So I'm a little long-winded.
No, that's perfect. That gives us an inside scoop. A lot of times when people think of business, they think of business in terms of a corporation, a brick and mortar building. But businesses like yours are run by people. And when
Yep.
investing in a business, you're also investing in its people. So that deep dive into your world gives us a real inside clue into who you are and how you not only are a businessman but a family man. So no, that was perfect. So how does your company what does your company do exactly? You create moonshine, and what else? Is there
Yeah. So what the short is that we make, manufacture, and market distilled spirits, and we do it under five brands, right? So when you think of a company, you think of a car company or a company that makes watches or something like that. There's one brand, and then there's subcategories of different offerings. For us, in the spirits world, we wanted multiple brands, right? This house of brands of approach. So we wanted standalone products. Our flagship is Florida CANE Vodka, and we do a sugar cane based vodka that is ultra smooth. And on top of it, we layer all those spectacular fruits that are grown locally inside Florida. So we have a jalapeno flavored vodka, which is super popular. We have a pineapple flavored vodka, an orange flavor, which is our number one seller to Walt Disney World and their properties. They buy a lot of our orange vodka. And then we also shortly after that, we made a moonshine. Now, the moonshine was really just an ode to our past, right? So it was a super sweet, almost like a liqueur. We call it sunshine moonshine. We only sell that inside the tasting room. The moonshine market itself has kind of dissipated. So that's another benefit of having multiple brands is when one kind of fades or one takes off, we can throttle it up or pull it back depending on that. Um, we have a red drum whiskey, which I've got right here, and
please
that's
show us.
yeah. So this is our whiskey line. It is named after my favorite fish to catch out here in the bay, which is a red drum. It's a really fun fish to catch. It's protected now because we've had some issues with some algae in the bay, but it's a beautiful fish, and it's kind of fun because this rye is really peppery, really leathery. We age it for almost 18 months, so it's on the light end, and then we do a bourbon and a corn whiskey, and we've been working really hard on a single malt. And as we get into like the strategy and long-term strategy, I'll be sure this is a big piece of when we go national.
How does
Um,
that go down when I drink it? How does that taste
oh,
going to?
too quickly. Yeah, it is nice. And that and then we have a gin. We call it Tamiami Gin. The Tamiami Trail is a historic trail that connected Tampa to Miami, and it kind of before Florida was developed, it was really the only way to get down there before the railways connected the whole state. It's super light, super fragrant. The very first ones I used a tangerine tree in my backyard as the base ingredient. So it's only got four botanicals: juniper, which is a requirement to call anything a gin, coriander, cucumber, and then tangerine. So it's very light. It's very refreshing, and a lot of people when they drink it are just surprised. They swear they weren't gin drinkers, and then they try our product and they are thereafter.
They change
Uh,
their mind.
they do. We win them over, and then we have our El Encanto Rum. El Encanto is the name of the historic building that we have moved to. We've been there now for 5 years, right in the heart of Ybor's Latin Quarter, which is Tampa's Latin Quarter, which is called Ybor City. It's a really great location. It's right across from the third trolley stop. So Tampa has a free trolley system that connects its downtown, the Latin Quarter, as well as the cruise ships. Not seeing much use this time because of world conditions and nobody going on cruises. But when that picks up
Hmm.
again, that'll get back to normal. A lot of people just they get off the trolley and staring right in front of them is our distillery, so they walk in and give us a try. Um, and that El Encanto, it actually is Spanish for it means the charm, like a charm bracelet.
Okay.
And we have a really unique silver rum. It has won just countless awards every time we enter it in spirit competition. It wins best to show, double platinum, double gold, and that that again, that house of brands concept, let's try our best at everything, but let the market respond to what we've done, and the market has really responded well to this. We kind of road showed it in February. We went to New York and California and talked to a lot of different distributors. We signed deals with distribution in 5 states. We put all those plants on hold because we couldn't support it when the shutdowns happened and coronavirus happened, but we've got all these back burner things ready to go.
But who are those distributors? Can you name some of them so when things pick back up, people know where to go and get it?
Yeah, so in the alcohol, Libdib is the name of the company that we're working with for the new states, and they will sell to the restaurants and the grocery stores and the liquor stores, on our behalf. But
Okay.
we have to support those accounts. That's one thing we learned really quick. It's just because you have a distributor, that's great, but doing the heavy lifting and doing the work and getting the accounts to close really falls on us, the brand owner. So then we'll launch that, and then we also make a line of Italian liqueurs, orangello, lemoncello. We do a pineapple, kiwi cello, and then a strawberry cello, which are absolutely delicious. And those are only available in the tasting room as well. So it creates this unique experience for people to come in. They can buy something directly from us, see how it's made, and get something totally unique that you can't get anywhere else on the market.
So, what sets Florida Cane apart from your competitors? Because, I mean, when I go in Total Wine is packed out. When I go in Walmart, there's a whole several aisles. So, what sets Florida Cane apart? Is it the way you distill? Is it the taste? Is it your secret sauce, your secret recipe? What sets you apart for
So
investors?
we're real people making real spirits. It's not just this big commercial setup. We do have a brand new still, but it's only 850 liters. So to us, it's giant, but it's very small to the big folks. Well, our signature spirit, the Florida CANE vodka, the premium vodka, we got into it a little bit last night there. So sorry, it's not brand new bottle. Um, what makes this smooth is we start with sugar cane, right? And in the distilling process, you have to take and make something for yeast to eat, right? You make alcohol by creating an environment where there's no oxygen, and when yeast eats sugar, it produces ethanol. That's what we're after. And when you use a grain, you have to convert those starches into sugars. When you have sugar cane, you just start right where format that the yeast can actually start to consume it. And this was really popular prior to World War II. And then there was a sugarcane shortage, and all the distillers in the world shifted away from grain. And so for us, it was going back and looking at the historical records of different companies that existed back then, and figuring out how they made vodka. You think of sugarcane, you think of rum.
Yep.
You have to distill it a little at a higher purity in order to legally call it vodka. And then when you do that, what elements are left? What are the samples that are left? And we found that just like there's beer purity laws that are the legal laws in Germany on how to make beer, these certain ingredients. In most of the former Soviet Republic, you have Russian standards for exposing alcohol to charcoal. And there's a standard, there's a length of time it has to be exposed to, there's a type of charcoal that it has to be exposed to. And excuse me, and to us that was
Sorry.
really something that said, all right, we got to hone in on this. So we started experimenting with all types of charcoal. And what we found was coconut husk, when it is burned with low oxygen, creates this very special kind of charcoal that takes out a lot of the heavy dark elements that exist in the base spirit. So we took this, what we jokingly call rocket fuel, this really harsh, fresh off the still spirit, and we built this custom filtration system where we slowly drip all of our base spirit through and expose it to this coconut husk based charcoal. That's our secret. And we're finding that other people are doing it all over. We're going on distillery tours. We've been doing this a long time, and folks, the word is out. It really is the secret.
Yep.
It makes it super smooth and very pleasant to drink.
So, as a company, as an investor, people looking to invest in your company as you grow, what is the minimum investment amount to get into your company, and what is the maximum, and then what does that get the investor?
Yeah. So The minimum is $250. So it's very affordable for almost everybody. The maximum would be 320,000 minus what we've raised to date. So to date, we just recently launched this. We just passed 90,250. So whatever that is, that's a huge number. If you're thinking about investing over 200,000, call me first. Let's go through all the details. I'll give you a tour and a couple free bottles. Um, but but really, what you get is you get what's called a convertible note. And the reason we chose this is an SEC registered security. So we worked with the platform called WeFunder. We submitted audited 2 years worth of financials. The company itself did a whole due diligence. We went through a lot of interviews. Then they presented us to the SEC and say, hey, we're going to sponsor this company. We're going to sponsor this financial instrument. So it's all registered. And the nuts and bolts are it's a 5 year note with that pays 5% annually, so that's not great. But what it does is it gets you at the front of the line for the moment before we have a large cash injection. So when we do go out and try and get a private equity firm to take us even to that next level, you will be at an investor now will be guaranteed a very discounted rate. So you'll get a better deal in stock and equity than what these other investors are going to get. So we have different market caps. It's a $10 million cap, and I have a really solid strategy where I believe we're going to grow the valuation of the company to above that. So a few years ago, we had a private firm come in and do an evaluation of what the company was worth at the time, and it was worth about 2.45 million. Again, that was almost 3 years ago. So we've had a lot of growth since then. And if you want me to just dive right into how we're going to get to 10 million, the plan, the basis, I can.
Please, please.
Okay. So we invested a lot, not only in the brand, the trademarks, and standing up these distribution networks inside the state of Florida. We also looked at our bottom line. What does it take us in our current equipment to actually put the spirit in the bottle? The cost for the packaging, the cost for the product, the labor associated with getting it in there, the boxes that we actually put it in. And what we found that we would have the most control over is the actual spirit, which makes sense, right? We're a
It
distillery.
does. It does.
And when we look at what it takes us, for instance, to produce this bottle of whiskey, it's all about time and putting it in the barrel and having that real estate in order to house that particular barrel. So every month we have to pay the rent on the space that barrel is taking up. And what we've done is we've gone and got a warehouse that is in a lower rent district. Like I just explained how great our tasting room and our micro distillery is because it's in this very tourist friendly. Well, that means rent is pretty high, right? And
Right.
if we were to start filling that up with whiskey barrels, it would be really prohibitive. It would really cost us a lot of money to store all those barrels there. So we have an offsite warehouse where we're going to start storing the whiskey. At the same time, we have this home run product, El Encanto rum, the silver rum, and we have to start developing these relationships with distributors and the salespeople and the bars and restaurants that are going to carry our product. So next year, we're going to have, we're going to finish our fundraising. We're going to have this $320,000 of capital. We're going to use it to support the expansion into multiple states and really continue to win Florida with our rum and develop that over a 2 year period. At the same time, we're going to be cranking up that still and filling up whiskey barrels, right? So whiskey takes time, and we're going to pack that warehouse full of our really award-winning whiskey. We're through
And the
this.
warehouse that you're filling, this is whiskey that is still fermenting, or this is whiskey that's ready to drink and consume.
It's aging.
It's
So
aging.
So one of the things I kind of described the beginning part of fermentation, where you create a solution that has a lot of sugar, there's no oxygen, you let the yeast go in and heat it and give us ethanol. Then we use our distilling equipment, those big beautiful copper stills, to heat it up, convert that beer mash from a liquid into a gas, and we'll pull off the elements we want, which is that ethanol. And then for our vodka, we flow it through that charcoal coconut husk filtration system. But for whiskey, we put it in barrels. And what's happening in the barrels is that you have this really clear spirit. It's interacting with not only the sugars in the wood, the glucose in the wood, so it's sweetening up from that. The barrels are burnt, so it has this activated charcoal that's removing aldehydes, that's removing esters. It's imparting a lot of different heavy compounds and flavors. And when you drink whiskey, you are tasting that interaction between the spirit and the charred barrel, and that takes time. And so we have this warehouse where we'll put these virgin barrels in. We've just filled them, and then over time, these chemical reactions are going to happen inside the barrel, and what we pull out of it is the whiskey that we're going to end up putting in a bottle and drinking. And so we make it cheaper than could be sourced. We're storing it at a much more cost effective place from a real estate perspective. And then when you come in and you say, well, what is the whiskey? Like it costs about $480 to fill that barrel in spirits, right? The
How much
barrel's
is
going
a
to
bottle?
well, at the end of the day, the bottle's gonna retail for 35 bucks, right?
Yep.
And we make quite a few from every barrel, but we have to pay our distributors, we have to pay the people that sell it, we have to allow for room, a margin for the restaurants and the liquor stores. But at the end of the day, when we try and say what is the value of the company, they want to look at the assets. And if we have a warehouse full of whiskey, how are they going to determine what that is? Well, they're going to look at that retail price. They're going to look at what our pull is in the market. How much can we as a team actually sell in a given year? And what I'm convinced of is that when we invest the time and money to build the relationships and build the distribution network, multi-state distribution network for the rum, we'll be able to layer on top of that our whiskey. So all these people that have carried our rum, in California and New York, Wisconsin, Colorado, and Illinois, those are the first states that we're going into. Uh, it's very interesting because during this crowdfunding, we've gotten a lot of other folks from New Jersey, Virginia. I know where you're at, North Carolina. They've all reached out and they've said, "Hey, send us samples. We really want to carry it here too." So we have to be able to be nimble enough to respond to those and look at those opportunities. We'll be able to come out and say, yeah, we're going to roll out, and that's where we would sit with the private equity firm and we'd say, here's what we think the value of the company is. Right? We got a warehouse full of whiskey. We've got a proven track record with in-state and out-of-state sales for our rum, and then they would place a value on the company, and that's where investors today would reap the benefits because they would sit back and they'd say, oh, okay, yeah, the private firm came in and valued it at 12 million, 15 million, 25 million, but I'm guaranteed to buy that stock at a 10 million
10
valuation.
million value. So
Yeah. So,
great, great. I have one follow-up question for you. I have another follow-up question, but we are going to go to a quick commercial break. This is
all
Gentleman
right.
Style Podcast. You guys like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning into the show, and we'll be right back.
Are you a local business looking to offer your customers easy access to cash without having to travel miles? We're here to help. At Norman Legacy Investments, we provide free ATMs with free installation that provide a suitable investment for your business. Even better, we offer you some profit sharing and handle everything from start to finish. Just reach out to us today to schedule a free consultation.
Thank you guys. We are back, and we have today the incredible Mr. Lee Nelson from Florida CANE, CEO and co-founder of Florida CANE Distillery Services Incorporated. I'm gonna go with that, the Incorporated. And my follow-up question to your previous statement: you want to go to those private equity firms to get after you've built the infrastructure and you've built up the brand and you've really fine-tuned in those markets, Florida, New York, the bigger markets that you're going after. Is the goal for your company, and you don't have to answer if you can't say, because of FCC regulations, he has to be very careful. So I'm gonna put that disclaimer out for him. He has to be protected. But if you can, what's the goal for Florida CANE? Are you wanting to go public one day, or you wanting to be bought out, or you just want that infusion of capital to continue to grow the company?
So I don't I don't ever think about that. I think about the we have a really long runway here, right? If you think about the spirit brands you're familiar with, the Bacardis, the Guinnesses, the Grey Gooses, they're when those distilleries were made and those brands were launched, That was 180, 200 years ago. And when I talk to my employees and I talk to investors, I always think, let's think about building something that 200 years from now is going to be synonymous with real quality in all these spirit categories, right? Florida Cane should be the Tito's of the country. We should target and make that a mission that over this long period of time we replace Tito's, right? I believe we have a superior product. We have to work on distribution. We have to work on name recognition. That's not going to happen overnight. When I think about red drum whiskey and I drink it, especially the single malt that we're going to roll out, through that plan that I just mentioned, when people think of single malt, they should think of red drum as being the best single malt on the market. We certainly had that with the El Encanto Silver Rum. Now it's about time. So your answer was, is the end goal to get bought out? No, our end goal is to make the best craft spirit company and brand portfolio brand in the nation. And so we don't have to have this sense of urgency that this has to happen overnight. I hope that I can stay the leader of the company as long as possible, but I also hope that it outgrows me. I hope we get to a point where we've built something that's way beyond what I can properly lead, and then I take a back step and surround myself with other people that have more insight and are more innovative. I can only get creative so many times, right? And I'd love to stay active as long as possible. So when we have, finding those private equity firms and finding those people that would come in and kind of helping us take it to the next level, that's not our only option, right? It may be we do go public. It may be that we look to find a collection of investors, or it may be that we find, you know, we become the very best brand in the market, and now this talent starts coming to us and other people put things together in order to buy in and buy ownership. I'm open to all ideas. It just has to fit, right? It has to fit the long-term vision, and that really is the goal. We want to be the best. We want to be the craft spirit of Florida, and then eventually the craft spirit of America. And I think that we're well on our way to doing that. There's a lot of challenges ahead, but I think that if we always keep that vision and that star in the sky that we're marching towards, I think that we can get there.
You will, and absolutely, I think that's every CEO, like yourself, every CEO in that position. They always want what's best for their company, and it's not strange or obtuse or or unknown when a CEO maybe takes a back step and becomes more of a consultant, or he's more in place of he's built up the organization, and now they're, like you said, the people and the systems that are in place to grow the company, and bigger brains, right? Someone who's working for you who's a Harvard graduate who can further see past what we can see. So that's great that you said that, and that's true of, I'm sure, of any CEO. Is a plan to also go overseas? You're gonna build a brand in Florida, you're gonna expand to the United States and become the recognized brand in the United States. Any potential to go overseas and deliver, like, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from the US Virgin Islands,
Okay.
and so any
They make
plan to
really
go
good
out
rum
of
there.
state? They do.
Yeah.
They do. But
Uh,
yours is really good as well, and I can see, I mean, just your rum line making it there.
I absolutely can. Right. Everybody hopes that you get that like viral moment where just some club or some celebrity picks it up and runs with it, and then the whole world demands it.
Captain
We
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Um, so the other thing that's changing, right, is that people today don't want the brands of their parents, right? So these long established brands, Buick is a great example. You'd sit in a Buick, that is such a great car, like everything about it. You put a millennial in a Buick, they're not going to buy that vehicle, right? And there's that's happening. So we're going to be blessed by being a new brand. We're going to have that as an advantage, and then we'll be able to appeal in the quality, but also in the newness, and that moment won't last forever, right? And things will shift. I've been very active here in Florida. We have a craft beer and craft spirit division of the World Trade Organization that's based right on the other side of the bay, and they've had a lot of sessions. And what their vision is when they look at in the 80s, the Napa Valley wine that really took off in the 90s and the turn of the century, that was all because of the World Trade Organization set up a shop north of San Francisco and said, let's figure out a way to export the wine that's being produced in Central and Northern California. And we were very lucky that the decision makers set up shop in Clearwater for the craft beer and craft spirit. And they have had training sessions with us, and they have trade missions, Costa Rica, Brazil. There's one that recently went to Israel prior to
Ooh.
happen, and
Oh,
there's also
congratulations.
yeah. So we're keeping our eyes on that, and we're attending those meetings and learning about what the limitations are. We have, I know this isn't an export, but it certainly is a different set of rules. We've been presented to a distributor in Puerto Rico, which would be really kind of a big
Yes.
win for us to go into the Puerto Rican market with rum from Florida. But they are convinced that there's our taste as well as our packaging would resonate well there. So we'll find out in a few weeks about what's happening with that. But I that is a natural progression. I think that the easiest markets for us, foreign markets, would be Canada, for us to go in and actually support. So it's one thing to get access to the market; it's another thing to have a strategy to develop the brand within that market. Right? One of the worst things we can do is sell a product to a bar, and then that bottle sits on the back shelf for a year and no one ever drinks it, right? So, and that's what we have to work with. We have to get on the cocktail menu. We have to get the staff trained and excited about carrying our product. So when the customer comes in and says, "What do you have? Do you have anything new?" That's the top of their mind, and it's the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, we have this award-winning rum that's made locally. Try it." That's key, and it's we can't say award-winning locally made rum when we're in Korea or Japan, right? So we're going to have to figure out what that niche is, and we'll keep developing it. Do we have a strategy right now to go overseas? No. Are we open to it? Yeah. Are we? Is that again 200 years? Is that back burner? Yeah, it's absolutely something that I'd love to do. Is make this a world class spirit with world distribution.
Absolutely. So we have a question from Miss Shanique Henry.
Okay.
She asks, how long do you ferment age your spirits?
That's a great question. So the rye is less than 18 months. We have a bourbon that is a little bit younger. It's about 16 months. And the single malt, because it's an experimental mode, we are really looking a little bit over 2 years. So we keep sampling and pulling from the test barrels that we have. We have two rums that sit inside barrels, and then we have a gin, a barrel aged gin. Those are very short. Those are at most 3 months. We're just using that to add color. We're using that to smooth out some of the spirit, just like the coconut husks. And it really just adds the chemical reactions that take many, many months. Those are required for the good whiskeys.
Perfect. Great question, Miss Shanique. Great question. That I want to follow up with. What are some upcoming blockbusters that you have coming down the pipeline for us? I see it looks like hand sanitizer.
Yeah, this is our COVID response.
So help
Uh,
us that. Help us explain that.
yeah,
You're
so
branching out there.
we had to, right? So when the shutdowns happened, we immediately got purchase orders canceled, right? Our distributor furloughed all their employees. Disney, Walmart, our largest customers, wrote us and said, "Hey, we're gonna put a little pause on this," right? And at the time, we all thought, "Oh, a couple months," right? Now here we are, month 8, month 9. It looks like it's not going to get back to normal to the end of the summer, but that's fine. We're prepared for that. A blessing came. I mean, really something phenomenal happened. And I had such a good team to support this. So, in the CARES Act, which was the very first piece of legislation that was passed, there was a small exemption given to holders of our license. So, we have a federal distiller's license. And it said that anyone who had this license could start making hand sanitizer so long as it was made but with this one single type, this one single recipe, which was the WHO standard recipe. And I'm sure you've had it, right? There's hand sanitizer that's super watery. It almost smells. It's very pungent, and you look at it and you're like, 70% alcohol, and that's going to kill all the viruses that it comes into touch with. And that was our first attempt. And we went. It was like a wartime footing. It took us a couple of weeks to figure it out. We had again great people on my team. They stood up an online ordering system, modified our website. We had closed our tasting room to the public because we were mandated to. We wouldn't have been open anyways, and we started making hand sanitizer, and we had to go source glycerin. We had to go source hydrogen peroxide. And when we took a step back, we realized, wow, this is almost the same thing. We make the alcohol, we add a few things to it. Like, so for our flavored vodka, we had sugar and flavors. For our hand sanitizer, we had glycerin and hydrogen peroxide. And then we put it in a bottle, we put it in packaging. And so, like, it was very minimal amount of retooling. It was the science wasn't terribly hard. We just had to start generating something called an SDS, a property sheet that was required. And then we immediately went out and said, if this works, if this model is the same, we have to find a distributor. And distributors needed hand sanitizer. There was this whole
Absolutely.
market, people who support hospitals, the cleaning companies that support hospitals, the cleaning companies that work at construction sites, and all these industries were deemed essential, but they had to open with all the proper PPE stuff in place, PPP stuff, and so I'll never forget it. We worked all day. We were ready to launch our hand sanitizer. We put it online and we sold out in 7 minutes. So we had done all this work to get up, and then we were out for days, right? So we started looking, and the supply chains totally broke. It was like a wartime footing. We really were trying to fire on everything. We were calling breweries that knew that they weren't going to be able to sell their product, right? Beer expires, and they were bringing over tons of beer, and we were distilling that beer for them, getting the alcohol out of it, turning it into hand sanitizer. And what we quickly realized was that at some point in time, this exemption in our license is going to go away. At some point in time, people are going to say, I really miss that hand sanitizer that had a moisturizer in it and didn't crack my skin all the time. And there was a local company with an FDA approved formula. And we worked with them, we sat down with them, and they said, listen, we can supply the alcohol. And at the time, they couldn't get the alcohol. They could supply the packaging. And more importantly, they had this FDA approved formula that wouldn't take years and years for us to produce. So we worked with them. We put it in this really unique kind of Florida style. It looks like suntan lotion, this Florida style packaging. We do have plans to come out. You talked about the pipeline, smaller bottles. Like, this is a bit cumbersome to put in the purse and take to the club, right? We want something a little bit more stylish. And so we'll work on that. But the formula, the base itself is this. It's got aloe, it's got vitamin E in it, so it's not going to totally destroy your skin. And then because we had the FDA approval, we could go to Amazon and become a registered retailer. So one of the brand new businesses that we stood up this year was as an Amazon retailer. Again, we're taking the alcohol that we're making on site. We're using a local company to blend it in their FDA approved facility, put it in this really nice packaging that we obviously had no experience with, because we would never sell alcohol in a package like that. And that's been really a lifesaver for the company. It has augmented the sales. Just to put it in perspective, in the 7 weeks that we made hand sanitizer, we actually don't make it
Wow.
anymore. We can if we need to, but we would only be making the alcohol and then sending it to this company, because this is the product line that we're committed to. In the 7 weeks, we made 3 years worth of alcohol. That's how
Woo!
big demand was. And that really it gave us a lot of flexibility. We really benefited greatly from that. So that won't come again, but it opened up a new sales channel for us, which has been fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that is why you're the head, right? That is why you're the head and CEO of your company, to be able to pivot and to break down the CARES Act to the point where you saw open window and your team saw open window, and to have such a dynamic staff and team. How many locations do you currently have? How many locations,
We
distilleries?
just have one distillery and the warehouse.
Okay.
We do all the business. So again, the distillery has a tasting room, and we worked really hard early on to get the legislature to change that and allow us to do that. We had to go to Tallahassee and advocate for the law change, and then the governor signed it into law. We were the first craft distillery to open a tasting room to the public in Florida. When we started, it's funny to think about. There were three craft distilleries. There was one down in, or actually, yeah, three craft distilleries. There was all on this coast of Florida, and now the last time I checked, there's 76 in the state of Florida. So we
Wow.
really, and it's all because of those law changes that we advocated for. But that's been a huge benefit. It one of the long term, and again, this is not something that is set in stone. This is not something that is part of this the way we're going to march to getting this over $10 million valuation. But there really is an opportunity to start setting up small nano distilleries across the state once we have the centralized warehouse, and really allow our tasting room, which it functions as today, as like an interactive billboard, right? The trolley stops, people get off, they see this historic building, these big, beautiful stills through the window. They walk in and go, "What is this?" We pour them samples. They fall in love with the brand. It really, you can't have a more engaging, brand experience than going in and seeing what's made, meeting the people that make it. And I'm not committed to this long term because we haven't done our due diligence and looked at all the numbers. But one of the options would be is to actually start setting up satellite distilleries across the strait, and do this hub and spoke model. And on our WeFunder page, before we launched, we had the opportunity to get interviewed by a lot of other CEOs, and we really explored that. And they brought out a good point, which is, don't put the giant asterisks that this may not happen, right? And then it's just a pipe dream, and you're considering it. But right now, we have a great location in Tampa. There is the possibility to open multiple ones. Um, when you look at the breakdown of where we derive our revenue, the majority of it is in wholesale, right? The majority of it is the stuff we're going to push through distribution, get into the Walmarts, the Total Wines, the ABC liquors. A very small amount of revenue is generated from the tasting room itself, and it's always going to be that way. You just think about pass through volume, the number of people that come to Ebor, but it's a very important part because that's where people are taking the picture in front of the still and tagging their friends on Facebook. They're putting it up on their Instagram stories when they're sampling the product, and that's how we get that the word out. And for us to say the product is great is something we have to do. For to hear it from your friends, that's more important, right? You trust your friends opinion. So that doesn't happen without a tasting room.
Absolutely. How do you give back to the community? Is it through those tasting rooms? How do you give back to your community in Florida besides this great, great tasting wine and
Well,
liquor?
we one of the things we did when we priced the hand sanitizer, we charged a little bit more for it because we wanted to siphon off and give hand sanitizer to schools, first responders. We have a
Wow.
really large homeless community in Tampa, and we spent many nights at the end of the day taking a percentage and walking around and giving the hand sanitizer to the homeless folks that actually just kind of make Ybor, live on the streets of Ybor. um, that was important to the team. It was phenomenally important to me. Was that if we were going to do all this work, uh, you know, we were getting calls. That moment that all happened, where there was the huge hand sanitizer shortage, we were getting calls from Tesla corporate, we were getting calls from Wawa, we were getting calls from 7-Eleven, we were getting calls from USPS and UPS, and we never fulfilled those orders. One, it was about capacity, like they were saying, just send us what you can. But to us, that didn't help the Tampa community. It didn't help the community we were in, right? So we were prioritizing requests from the local facilities managers that were calling and saying, "I can't open this building for my employers because I can't get hand sanitizer." Even the folks that take the garbage, like the two companies in the Tampa Bay area, they were like, "What can you do?" Right? So we gave them huge discounts on the hand sanitizer. Those were folks that I always thought were a huge exposure point, were the people collecting the trash, right? If this virus is everywhere, there was a point where we responded to those requests, and it really felt, it wasn't like it felt good. We had to do it. It was a no brainer, right? When we have local ambulance companies that are responding, the police department. I mean, one of the communities that got hit by coronavirus the quickest and fastest in the Tampa Bay area, I'm not certain if it was otherwhere, were police. They were really pulling people over. They were doing their job, doing whatever, and they just had this exposure that was massive. So first responders got we donated quite a few, and then the schools, we donated just thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer to the local schools.
Wow, y'all. This is Gentleman Style Podcast and Mr. Lee Nelson, CEO, co-founder of Florida CANE Distillery. This is incredible. Biggest heart on the planet, to be able to serve his community in that way. How can my audience, number one, invest in your company, and then number two, how can they get a hold of you after this show?
Email is always the best. I actually have a phone that I try and not answer because I don't need my car warranty renewed every 5 days. But yeah, Lee at Florida CANE. I respond to everything that comes in that way. If you have any questions, let me know. WeFunder.com/the Florida CANE Distillery. Thanks. I love that. Putting it up on the screen. Take a look at that. Ask all the questions. Do your due diligence. We've put everything out there, but we have GAP compliant audit. All our finances have been reviewed by an external company. The SEC has approved our offering. WeFunder is the first Reg CF, which is regulation crowdfunding platforms that are out there. They're in the business. They are the industry leader. They allowed us, right? They have a very rigorous approval process. So we went through that, and then we've done our best to just show you what we're about. We put a video up there that describes the team, the product. We talk a little bit about the hand sanitizer. We put a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook. Just last week we went out and talked to Disney, and they have a lot of craft cocktails that feature our spirit. And one of the things that in these times, like being in Florida, the biggest impact has been the closing of the Canadian-U.S. border. So this time of year, we have this huge insurgence of visitors from Canada. A lot of the Canadians own homes in Florida, and I am confident that the moment that this thing resolves, we are going to see growth in this country and in this space like we're going to drink this country dry. I mean, there is going to be celebrations like you wouldn't believe. People are going to feel so relieved. Travel is going to return, and we are going to keep the fire lit, and we're going to keep the relationships with our distributors and our restaurants, and we are going to have everything in place so that when that spike happens, we can service it again, right? And when those purchase orders return to the pre-COVID level, I think they're going to exceed the pre-COVID level, and I'm really happy that we survived during this time, and I'm really looking forward to kind of the future for the company and the nation as a whole and the economy as a whole.
Absolutely. So y'all, please get in now. Only a minimum $250 investment to lock in with that 5% interest rate convertible note. So please take advantage of this. Invest in a business today. A lot of people, I can't say that enough, when people consider investing, they think stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But here we have homegrown in Florida. If you are in the state of Florida, please invest. And I'm going to read off the WeFunder website because I also have audio. We are on iHeartRadio, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube. So it's wefunder.com/the Florida CANE Distillery. So get out, support, and invest. I know there are people that are not doing well right now. We also have a website for the Florida CANE. If you want to check out the website, if you actually live in Florida, and so you can see the Florida CANE product line and the hand sanitizer, and that's www.floridacane.com/. Mr. Nelson, any final words from my audience as we wrap this up?
No, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another great episode. Mr. Nelson, I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you, brother, for dedicating the time and taking the time out to serve and give back to community today. And as you grow, we want to grow with you. So, like I always say, family, this is Gentleman Style Podcast, your number one host, and Mr. Neil Nelson of Florida CANE. Like I always say, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and take care of business. This is Marcus Norman and Mr. Lee Nelson signing off. Love you guys. Bye.